Hey guys, welcome to Celia's Playlists. Today I am here with DeSousa, who writes pop music and is from Rhode Island. DeSousa, how is it going today? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been a good day. Just waiting for this.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're finally here and that we are going to get into some really awesome conversation. I've had so much fun with all of the episodes that I've recorded so far, and I think my favorite part is that all of these conversations are different. So let's start out with an easy question. Who are you, and tell me a little bit about your project?
So I started my DeSousa project. I've been making music for probably about 8 years now. Around 16, I started producing by myself on my phone, like nothing crazy. But I did realize that my music that I had before, tied to like my full name, wasn't cutting it. So I dropped the first name and I figured like let's really get into this. Let's put some money into it. Let's work hard to make a good project, and that's what I've been doing.
Cool. And for those people that have not yet listened to your music, tell me a little bit about what you just said that there was a change between the stuff with your first and last name. So what is like the world of DeSousa's music?
So it's a little bit of everything. I kind of just I take what I listen to, I take my influences, and I like to put it all together and just make like a really cool project. Like my first album has a hyper pop song on it, but it's also got an acoustic song like two songs before. So you don't know what you're getting with me, and I think that's kind of like the big appeal.
I love that because I am the same kind of person. Like today, I could have shown up like wearing like I don't know. I've been running around in a captain's hat lately. Like it could be anything. So I love that that is how you kind of approach your music and like the fact that you have that variety because it allows you to try different things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
So let's take a back step for a second. You said you started producing on your phone. Is that right?
Yeah, on GarageBand.
I we just talked a little bit in the last episode about garage band, so that's kind of like funny, like that is kind of the inciting place that everyone started. They started on something like that and have been able to develop since then. I know that like you said you self produce, correct?
Yeah.
So I want to hear a little bit about like I guess the writing process that you go through personally to create these different kinds of songs. Where do you start with your writing process?
That's a loaded question right there because it could start anywhere. It could start with an idea when I'm at like my day job or in the shower. It could start with like something I write on the guitar. It really could be anywhere. When I was writing my last album, Closure, me and my producer, well, kind of producer, like co-producer, me and my friend John, we would get together and I'd be like, I want to write 2 songs today. I want to write 3 songs today, because my goal was to kind of get that outside insight to see if I could switch up my sound from what I was doing before. So I would kind of bring him in, we'd write together, and then we'd record it. And I was like,
Cool.
I'm not producing anything until everything's written. That didn't work out.
So let's dive into that because I think that's an interesting. You have two different factors that you were talking about there, which one is collaboration. I love that it's a friend of yours too because like the dynamic between that, like your friend knows a bit about you and like the way that you function. So like, how is it working with someone that is more of a friend rather than being like I found this production studio somewhere and like I sat down with the producer and I had to be very like prim and proper and like feeling like okay like the pressure. How is it working with friends?
It's definitely a lot better. Yeah, it's just better. You can be more comfortable when you're talking to your friends. Like I would be so comfortable to be like, what if we did this thing? And he would be comfortable to be like, that is an awful idea. And I think that's really where it balances out, and it's like you're gonna get the best project working from people you can be honest with and who make you be honest about yourself.
I think that's a really important thing, both as like an artist but also as a producer to have those type of people around you. um, when we were like doing our pre-interview questions, you kept using the word friends. So like, do you also write with like write, produce, and like do all of these steps with your friends, or do you like start the process by yourself and then go to them?
All depends on the song. Like my new single "Us" I just released a couple weeks ago. I started like this rapping part,
Hmm.
and I have one friend, the one I produced my whole first album with, was like, "You're not rapping on this album. It kind of sounds corny." And I was like, "Okay, I won't rap." So then this one comes around and I start working on it, and I'm working on that song, and I was like, "Is this bad?" So I drove to my friend's house and I was like, "I need to show you this because I don't know if it's good or not." And I showed him the first half, and he's like, "Are you kidding?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Is it bad? Is it terrible?" He's like, "No, it's great." And then we kind of got into this weird like push and pull. I'd shoot an idea his way, he'd shoot an idea my way, and it turned into what we have now on that song. So it all depends on who you're working with, and I've got other songs on the project I'm working on now that I've written completely by myself. Like, it all depends on what's needed for the song.
That makes a lot of sense, and I love the way that you kind of talked about the back and forth, because at its core is what collaboration is, and
Yeah.
collaborating with others and collaborating with people that understand you is like something that's very important. So I'm like driving that home, because as someone like you, I'm a video producer. I do photos. I work with people all the time, and like even on my side of it, if it's someone that I can communicate with and connect with, the project is going to get so much better, because I can
Yeah.
understand like where their thoughts are coming from, and then like it just allows things to elevate. Has that kind of been the experience that you've had when you've paired up with people and like collaborated with them?
Oh yeah, 110%. Unless it's like, if you get yourself into a room with three people and you all have the same goal in mind, which is, I want to do something creative today, you're gonna do something creative, and it's gonna be, you're gonna come out with a good project, you're gonna come out with a bad project. I touched on my last album a little bit. Every song on the album was written in a session with multiple songs except the first one. And none of the songs on the album were in another session with the other one. So there's 10 songs on the album. None of them were written at the same time as another song on the album.
That's a cool dynamic, I feel like, because you have like a diversity there. Because, like, if you're writing like two or three songs in one session, you're like, okay, this is where my brain was at that day. And you have like different pieces in time that you brought together into one larger project.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can feel the different emotion through the album too. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool. And which album is this for the people at home, so that they
So
can go
this is
listen?
my debut album, Closure, that came out last year.
So closure is like a very like a term that a lot of people hear. Is there a journey that you brought people through on this album, or like were you on a journey when you wrote some of these songs? Because like I feel like bringing everything into an album rather than doing just singles or just doing an EP is, it's an experience in itself. People are going to listen to like the album, they'll line up on the album. So where was your head at in like that process?
So at first it just started with me trying to find the songs I like the best. And then I I walk into my studio one day, which is in my house. So I went and grabbed my friend John, brought him in. He worked on the whole album with me, start to finish. I brought him in. I'm like, what if we did a concept album?
Mm-hmm.
So we have our main character fall in love in the first song, and progress through the album, do something kind of stupid, and then like he ends up like cheating on the character, on like the love interest, and then by the end of the album he's with that girl, and the
Okay.
album perfectly loops back to the beginning, and it's like a cycle. So you kind of feel this person's like journey throughout the album, and it's a pretty cool way it's written.
I actually really love that, because as someone that typically is a big shuffle person, because I'm like all of the playlists that I've made, like they're made to be shuffle playlists. I love
Yeah.
when people curate an experience. And that's kind of what you did through this album. So like anyone that would know that story would be like, "Oh shit, let me go listen. Let me see how
Yeah.
this goes and let me see what this guy does." So I love that you took the intention and you created an experience for the listeners.
Yeah. My guitar teacher when I first started playing, and this was some almost 10 years ago now, he always said, when I listen to an album, the best songs have to be the first and the last one. especially because when you make the first song and the last song some of the best, you have to be intentional about what's in the middle. So I'm very picky about the order of the songs on my album. And that's something you'll see on the first album, something you'll see on this upcoming project I'm working on too.
I love that, and I do the same thing with photo sets. On like when I put out photo sets, my important ones are the first one, the middle one, and the last one, because like social media, you put a song to the photo set, people are swiping through as the song is going, but they remember the first one because that's the one they stopped on, and they remember the last one because that's the last one they swiped to. So like it's storytelling in a nutshell. So you want the beginning and the end to be memorable.
110%.
Very cool, very cool. I love the intentionality there. That's really awesome. So I know you had alluded to this. I know that you sing on some of your music, but you're also now rapping on some of your music. How is the approach for those two, like, different ways of expressing yourself different in the writing process?
So a lot of it, like, I guess mathematically you could say, a lot of it's the same. Like, you want to make sure your rhyme scheme is good. You want to make sure it's flowing good. But the biggest point for both is telling your story. You just want to make sure you're telling your story across the board. But when it comes to rapping, there's a lot more science to it. There's like your internal rhymes. There's your main rhymes. You want to make sure if you're going to do exact rhymes that they're actually exact. And you want to make sure your flow's good. Writing for singing is a lot more about making like a catchy melody or something people are going to remember and want to sing along to. Rapping is more about just getting your punches in and being able to flow on the beat well. And I think that's something I've accomplished a couple times on this album.
I think that that's a cool way to explain it, because I feel like obviously like you're still going about the same approach, but the delivery is different.
Yeah.
So like essentially from what you said, like, you're trying to think more like melodic in two very different ways, because you're trying to make sure that like with the way that you're doing the rapping, that the diction's there, that the rhymes hit, that the things actually like connect. Whereas when you're singing, you're dealing a little more with the melody there, and you're making sure things flow with the instrumentals. Like obviously that's important with rapping too, but how did you kind of like figure out how your, I guess, rapping sound, your diction, how you kind of carry yourself in those type of beats? Like, I guess my question is, how did you kind of maneuver that? Because I know that you said you brought it to your friend and was like, is this any good? So obviously it's something that you've been working on as a process.
Yeah, so I've been rapping just as long as I've been singing.
Oh, cool.
When I got into playing guitar, I was big into country music.
Cool.
And that's like 2015. Everyone in country music thought they could rap for some reason. So that was kind of where that came from. And then it spread out into listening to artists like Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, G-Eazy, Kanye West, like the big guys in rap music. Mm-hmm. And you start to see a lot of the science behind it. But obviously I'm a pop boy myself. So I wanted to bring my worlds together, and that's kind of what I did on that. But the two friends I produced the album with are both listen to a lot more rap than I do, a lot more hip hop, two completely different styles. So I brought it to both of them to just see like what here is something that you would listen to. And I got their input on it. I actually wrote the entire rap verse in Us with my friend Safford, who also makes music. And we wrote it together. At one point, I was writing it, and he's like, just don't sound corny. He was like, Eminem's great, but he does this choppy thing. And it's like, that's what you kind of do a lot. Don't do that. So I was like, my favorite artist ever is Ed Sheeran. I just think his craftsmanship's amazing. And his rapping's good. So I was like, I wish I could just be like Ed Sheeran and rap it in a British accent. So I rapped the entire thing in a British accent. And he's like, that was great. Do it again, but less British. I was like, no way. He's like, do it. So I did it. And that's the take that we ended up keeping as our main take.
I love that. That's taking direct inspiration and then figuring out like your style through an inspiration of yours, which is amazing.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So I know that, like, it sounds like you have a pretty awesome collaborative community over there. When you are like, we've been talking a lot about the writing process, but when you are moving through the different like steps, like, how do you go about working with your mixing and mastering?
So I bring it all to a point where it's listenable and then send it right over to the guy who wrote Closure. He does all of my mixing and mastering for me. He's phenomenal, and he'll throw in some of his own little twists here and there. And it's always a cool thing. I did my album, my last EP, and then he's probably right now mixing my follow-up project to that EP. So when it comes to mixing and mastering, I just leave it in his hands because I know he's going to do a good job.
It's always important to find those type of people. How did you find like, someone that you have that kind of trust with, or how did you build that kind of trust with, I guess these other people that are, I guess, your team now, essentially?
Yeah, so I've actually known both of them pretty much my whole life. So I'm 22. I've known both of them since I was like in my like early teenage years. The one who mixes and masters for me, I actually made his first song with him.
That's cool.
So I kind of helped him get into that passion of music. And then we've gone different ways with it. I work on my writing, he works on his engineering, and we've become a really good team together.
I love that because I have some people that I've known forever. One of my directors and frequent collaborators is someone that I met when I was, I don't know, in second grade. And I'm just like, yo, I have a project for you. And then she's just like, all right, what are we doing? I don't know what we're doing, but like, I'm down because like, you have that synergy, you have that energy, and you know how each other works. So like, I don't know. I always think it's fun to find out how people have found their team members, and when they fall into the I've known them forever boat, just like I have. It's always fun to hear that there's like little pockets and little communities all over of these types of creative people.
Oh yeah, and another thing you learn too is like you never know what talent somebody has inside of them. Like my friend who makes music, his uncle's one of the best musical minds I've ever met. His cousin has a music degree from Gordon. His dad's one of the best drummers I know. But he never made any music. And then all of a sudden he sends me the song. He's like, can you make me a beat for this? I wrote it over a YouTube beat. And it's like really good, like melodic rap, like Juice WRLD stuff. And I'm like, it must just run in the family, because I had never known he made music. And then all of a sudden he was making really good music.
That's so cool. And I feel like that's a thing that just happens just out in the community too, because I know on Long Island we have like a pretty close knit like performance scene. I know that you've gone out and done some performing yourself. What is the Rhode Island scene like?
Interesting. Rhode Island's got a big underground rap scene and a really big rock music scene. Like my brother was in a metal band that toured across the country. He was the drummer for them. So music has kind of just been like my life always. But getting into the Rhode Island music scene, you realize there's not a lot of people who listen to my type of music. So I kind of had to work around that. My album release show for Closure, I had 3 rappers and 2 rock bands open for me.
Cool. Very
and
cool.
that kind of drew the crowd in. But
that's also cool because like that's different dynamics of people that you're bringing together for the same show. And I know that like on Long Island we also like mix genres and things like that on lineups. How, like you said, that pulled in a crowd. Did it pull in like in your opinion like an aligned crowd by the time that you got on?
I think so. I think everything. It just all seemed to work out. I don't really know how to say it, but it all seemed to work out.
I'm glad to hear that because like you want that energy. You want the people to be like into your stuff. So I'm glad that they were able to like be good support for you.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm glad to hear that there's like a cool underground scene going on over there, because I feel like some people, like I know that I'm on an island and you're on in a place that is called an island but may not be actually an island. Some people are creating on an island, so it's cool to hear that, like, even if you don't know about a scene, it still exists. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And that there are creative people around that you can collaborate with. So like I'm glad to hear that you have an immediate community, but then a surrounding community that you're able to come together with. So that's
Oh
really
yeah.
awesome. So I have this one question that I ask every single person that comes onto this show. So this is like the big question, but it's not that big of a question, I promise. So the question I ask everyone is, for someone that's starting now in whatever area of, that you want to kind of like touch on with this, if they're starting on music now, what would be your piece of advice for them going forward?
My biggest piece of advice is just to be able to learn from the people around you. Cause like I now have a lot of people who I've been showing how to produce. And it's like I started with no knowledge. I'm entirely self-taught in pretty much all of my music stuff. If you know somebody who knows more than you, learn as much as you can from them, because you'll just be able to take what they know and improve that. And then the next person's going to take what you know, and then they're going to go farther than you did. And it's a good
It's
way to just teach the next generation.
I love that. It's all about like, you know, growing together in that way, right?
Yeah, 110%.
That's so cool. So, DeSousa,
Yes.
if people want to find you, if people want to like, follow you, like hear your music, collaborate with you, how would they do so?
So all of my social medias, and this actually also came from my friend. My handle's Suzy Q's on everything. SOUSYQS. Suzy Q's. I don't remember how this nickname came up. He just took my name and it progressively turned into less and less of my name.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool. I like, cause I feel like you always see everyone's handles, and like mine's my name. That's
Yeah.
an easy one to find. But like when you find an artist and it's like, hi, my name is this, but find me on this place with this completely different like thing. It's like, huh, how did that come together? How did that happen? Where did this come from? And it just leaves people guessing. So, Suzy Q's.
Suzy Q's. But
Suzy Q's.
I'm DeSousa on all streaming platforms. That's where you'd listen to my music.
Awesome. So I want to thank you for sitting down with me. This was a fun conversation, and I know that we talked a lot about collaboration. Collaboration seems to be like the thing that you do and the thing that you do best to create amazing music. So I'm glad that we were able to like hang out and chat and get to know each other.
Yeah, of course. This has been great.
Thank you, thank you. And I love all of these conversations because I know a lot of different things about different parts of the industry, and like getting to hear from different people like sparks different things in my brain. So it's fun for me. But on that note, make sure you guys are following DeSousa, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Adios.
Later.